YouTube Yogis. Welcome to class today. My name's Jennifer. I will be taking you through a flexibility and balance course this morning or afternoon or evening, wherever you're at currently in the world. So we will begin in a seated position, just taking some really nice deep breaths here. So inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. Next one, inhale through the nose and exhale through the nose, constricting the breath and directing it down through the throat to establish Ujjayi breath. One more inhale and exhale. We'll start off in a tabletop position, hands underneath the shoulders and knees underneath the hips. We'll take some cat-cows here, inhaling to open the chest forward as you bend through the lower back. And exhale, protracting out through the shoulder blades, belly button in towards the spine for our cat pose. Oscillating in between cow pose, bringing the chest forward through the upper arms and exhaling back into cat. Taking that one more time. Inhaling for cow pose and exhaling for cat. Now coming back into a neutral tabletop, we'll take some thread the needles. Inhale the left arm to reach up towards the ceiling and exhale, thread it underneath the chest over towards the right side of the room, bringing the right or the left earlobe onto the ground. Option, if you have a much more flexible neck and spine, is to bring the back of the head onto the mat. And you reach your right arm up and overhead, keeping the hips as square to the front as possible. Inhale to lengthen your spine. And exhale to twist deeper, taking about 3 breaths in this pose before coming out. Coming out of the pose, pressing your right hand back into the mat, reaching the left arm up towards the ceiling. And then we'll repeat on the right side. Inhale the right arm up overhead and exhale, thread it underneath you, reaching the left arm up overhead, bringing the right earlobe to rest onto the mat, or bringing the back of the head once again to rest on the mat. Inhale, lengthening your spine, and exhale, twisting deeper. Taking about 3 breaths total in this posture, lengthening with each breath. Inhale to come back up, pressing the left palm down into the mat, and reaching back up, coming back through a neutral tabletop, taking some light circles on the wrists just to warm them up, switching directions after about 3 circles. Just once again warming those wrists up. And then tucking the toes underneath, slowly lifting the hips and pressing back into our downward facing dog position. Option here if you want to walk your dog, that's totally fine, bending one knee at a time, allowing the back body to warm up. Just taking some really nice Ujjayi breaths here. In through the nose and out through the nose. On the next exhale, lift your heels, bend your knees, and step up to the top of the mat. Halfway lift to gaze forward, keeping a flat back. Bringing your hands to the mat or to your shins. And exhale, forward fold. Inhale to reach up, lengthen up. And exhale, hands at your sides for Samastitihi. And then we'll take some sun salutation A's here. Inhale, arms up, reach up, lengthen up. And exhale, dive it down into a forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, gazes forward. And exhale, step back through high plank. Taking your knees down, shifting the chest forward over the wrists. And slowly lowering down, grazing your rib cage with your elbows. Bringing the chest and chin to the mat and extending the legs long, pressing the tops of the feet into the mat and inhaling to pull your shoulder blades down your spine, shining the chest forward. All the lift should be coming from the back body, so much so that you can lift your hands up off the mat and stay lifted. Coming back up and pressing into a downward facing dog. Taking 3 deep breaths here. Inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the nose. Taking 1 more breath here. Inhale. Exhale, lift heels, bend knees. Inhale, step up to the top of the mat, halfway lift, flat back, and exhale, forward fold. Inhale, arms up, reach up, lengthen up. And exhale, hands at your sides for Namaste. 1 more time, inhale, arms up, reach up, lengthen up. And exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. And exhale, step it back through plank. This time, once again lowering through knees, chest, chin. Maybe taking some push-ups if you want to practice. On your exhale, pushing yourself back up into the tabletop position. This is a really great way to build strength in your chaturanga to progress past the knees, chest, chin variation. Now lowering completely down, extending the legs, inhaling the chest through the arms for cobra, this time pressing a little bit more into the palms of the hands, keeping the elbows bent, and exhale, pressing back up through tabletop into downward facing dog. Taking 3 more deep ujjayi breaths here, inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the nose. Last inhale. And on the exhale, lift your heels, bend your knees, gaze forward. Inhale, step, hop, or float to lightly land at the top of the mat and halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, arms up, reach up, lengthen up. And exhale, Samastitihi. Now we'll take our Sun B pose, so sitting back into our heels, bending through the knees to sit in our imaginary chair, and lowering through chair, coming down and rolling onto the back body, coming through some fun little body rolls back up to stand. Exhale, sitting back through our chair, rolling back onto our backs, and then rolling back up, coming into a stand if you can, doing it without the hands, but if you need to help push yourself back up. Last time, rolling back, and then rolling back forward, coming back up through stand. I guess we're doing it 1 more time. So rolling back through our plow pose, coming back up into stand, and now we take our chair pose, sitting back, weight is in the heels, bending through the knees, keeping the hips square, and exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, gaze forward. Exhale, step or jump directly through chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog or cobra. And exhale, rolling back into downward facing dog. Inhale, stepping the right foot up to meet the right thumb, keeping the hips square as you pivot the left heel down, coming up into warrior 1. And exhale, clearing it out with a vinyasa of your choosing. Meeting back in downward facing dog. Inhale, the left foot steps forward to the left thumb, pivoting the back heel down, keeping the hips square for warrior 1 on the left. And exhale, clearing it out with a vinyasa. Meeting in downward facing dog. Taking 3 ujjayi breaths to reset. Taking 3 nice deep ujjayi breaths here, in through the nose and out through the nose. Taking your last breath here, inhale. Exhale, lift heels, bend knees. Inhale, travel to the top of the mat, stepping, hopping, or floating to land softly and halfway lift. Exhale to forward fold. Inhale, coming up through your chair pose, sitting back into the heels, lifting the arms up and belly button into spine. And exhale, samastiti, arms at your side. Inhale, sitting back into that imaginary chair once more. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, gaze forward. Exhale, step or jump directly into chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog or cobra. And exhale into downward facing dog. Inhale, right foot meets the right thumb. Inhale, hips are square for warrior one. And exhale, vinyasa, meeting in downward dog. Inhale, the left foot steps up to meet the left thumb at the top of the mat, squaring the hips forward. Inhale, arms up for warrior one on the left. And exhale, stepping back through high plank to take your vinyasa. And meeting back in downward facing dog. Taking 3 breaths here. On your last breath, inhale. And exhale, lift your heels, bend your knees. Inhale, step, hop, or float to the top of the mat, halfway lift. And exhale, forward fold. Inhale, sitting low through our chair pose. And exhale, coming into stand, hands at the sides. Inhale for our last chair pose, sitting deep, reaching up, belly button in towards the spine. And we're holding here. Really engaging through the inner thighs, keeping the knees pointed directly forward. Once again, the weight is in the heels. And exhale to forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, step back through plank or jump into chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog or cobra. And exhale, rolling back into downward dog. Inhale, stepping forward into warrior one. And exhale, or holding here, keeping the hips square to the top of the mat. Once again, an option here, if you experience knee pain in that back leg, is to lift your heel up off the mat instead of keeping it anchored in the traditional warrior one. And exhale, stepping back through high plank, taking a vinyasa, maybe doing the one-legged variation, and exhale into downward dog. Inhale, left foot steps forward, back heel pivots or lifts, squaring the hips forward for warrior one. And we're just holding here to breathe. Once again, if you experience knee pain, there is no issue with lifting that back heel off of the mat, coming into more of a lunge position. And on your last breath, exhale through your vinyasa, option to take a one-legged chaturanga and meeting in downward facing dog. Inhale the right leg up and back, 3-legged dog. Exhale, knee to nose, stepping the right foot up to the top of the mat, lowering the back knee. Inhaling up into a low lunge, magnetizing the feet towards one another in order to lift the hips up and create engagement through the hip joints rather than just sinking directly into them, making this more of an active lunge. And then slowly begin to shift more into a relaxed lunge, getting more of a stretch. And holding here, continuing to breathe, tracking the shoulder blades down the spine, keeping your spine nice and long. Coming back up into that engaged lunge, and exhale forward, going deeper into the lunge. On your next inhale, pushing through the feet, and exhale to lift yourself into a high lunge here by just pressing into both feet to lift the back knee off the ground. Keeping the hips square to the front of the mat, arms up overhead. And exhale, lean forward, bringing the hands to heart center, twisting to hook the left elbow on the outside of the right knee. Option to lower the back knee once again if that's where you're at in this pose. Otherwise, keeping the back knee lifted, focusing on really expanding through the shoulder blades in the chest and gazing over the left or the right shoulder. Inhale back through center and exhale, coming into a warrior 3 pose, transitioning slowly, bringing the chest over the thigh as you shift forward. Hands can be in towards heart center, along the sides of the body, or directly out in front of you. If you're having trouble balancing in this pose, really focus on keeping that left foot flexed. Exhale to fold into a half split, keeping the hips square rather than focusing on just trying to shoot that left leg up as high as you can. You really want to focus on keeping the hips square. You have the option to grab a hold of the back of the right shin to assist. Inhale, halfway lift, hands on the ground. And exhale, step back, coming into our warrior 2. Hips are in an open position and arms are extended out in either direction, keeping a soft gaze over that right middle finger towards the front of the room. On your next inhale, come to exhale and lower down in towards the back of the mat, into the left hip, coming into a Skandasana pose. You have the option to grab a block here to place it under your butt as well to help assist you if your ankle flexation is not quite where it needs to be for this pose. Option to open the arms and take a bind, or to just hang out in this Skandasana with the hands towards heart center. Inhale, shift back towards the front of the mat, coming directly into our side angle pose. Bringing the right hand to plant on the mat or the right forearm on the left thigh. And then slowly shifting in between with each breath, in between side angle pose and Skandasana, building some heat in the legs. If you need to assist yourself with your hands, please feel free to do so. This will help you build strength. After our last Skandasana pose, face the back of the mat and plant the left hand into the mat and slowly begin to twist open into a twisted lunge, and keep going, rolling onto the outer edges of the feet, coming into a revolved Skandasana pose or IT band stretch. Inhale, lift the hips, coming back through lunge, facing the back of the room, and exhale, stepping back and vinyasaing. Now take a breath in and a breath out to prepare for the other side. Inhale, left leg up towards the ceiling, 3-legged dog. Exhale, step the left foot to the front of the mat, lowering the back knee. Inhale, arms reach up overhead, magnetizing the front foot and the back foot together once again, coming into that engaged low lunge, lifting the hips up along with the spine, bringing the shoulder blades to drag down the spine as you keep a nice lifted spine. On your next exhale, shift the hips forward, coming into more of a deep hip opening stretch. On your next inhale, coming back up into that engaged low lunge. And exhale, shifting back more into the hips. Tucking the back foot on the next inhale, lifting up through the back knee, coming into a high lunge here. Hips should still be square to the front of the room and engaged. Spine is still straight and lifted. Next, exhale, go ahead and bring the hands into heart center. And twist to hook the right elbow on the outside of the left knee, coming into a twisted lunge. Gaze is over the left shoulder, up towards the ceiling or towards the back of the room, which used to be the front of the room, now that we're all flipped around. Inhale to lengthen the spine, and exhale to help you twist deeper. As with the other side, you have the option to lower that back knee in order to assist you with this pose. Inhale, facing this front of the room, and exhale, shifting forward into our warrior three. Option to keep the hands into heart center or to extend them back behind you along the sides of the body, or for a challenge, extend them out in front of you. Flexing the back foot to help you maintain balance, and maybe even bending through that standing knee to also help you maintain balance. Take an inhale, and then on the exhale, folding forward, keeping that back leg lifted, coming into standing splits. Focusing on keeping the hips square rather than just shooting that right leg up towards the ceiling, towards straight. Option to grab a hold of the back of the left shin with the left hand. Inhale, halfway lift, and exhale, step back into that open hip position for warrior two. Arms extended out in either direction. Front knee is bent at 90 degrees. Take an inhale there. And then exhale, slowly lower into that back right knee for a quick Skandasana, coming back up into warrior two, with each inhale and exhale alternating between these two poses. Once again, using the hands to assist you or going for no hands. On the last inhale, shifting forward into our side angle pose. Option to plant the left hand on the inside of the left foot or rest the left forearm on the left thigh. Inhale to come back up through warrior two, and exhale, shifting back into that Skandasana on the right side. Option to take a bind or just keep your hands into heart center, sitting deeply into that right knee. Once again, option here for a block or to sit the butt on the ground. Settling into this Skandasana, slowly transitioning towards your twisted lunge, planting the left hand onto the mat, opening the right arm up towards the ceiling. Inhaling to lengthen the spine and exhaling to twist deeper. Slowly rolling onto the outer edges of both feet and lowering the hips towards the mat. Coming into this reverse Skandasana or IT band stretch and just holding here, breathing into the hips. You can stay as lifted or as lowered as feels good in your hips. On the next inhale, coming back up through twisted lunge, and exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog or cobra, and exhale, downward facing dog. Take an inhale here, and on the exhale, lifting your heels, bending your knees, gazing forward. Inhale, step, hop, or float to the top of the mat, halfway lift, and exhale, forward fold. Inhale, coming up through our chair pose, sitting back through the heels, and exhale, hands at your sides for Samastitihi. Now, beginning our standing sequence for the practice. Put all the weight in your left foot, beginning to lift the right knee or right foot up off the mat, bringing the right knee in towards the chest. And we'll open the right knee out towards the side, coming into a tree pose, bringing the right foot to rest on the inside of the left shin or the left thigh, not on the inside of the left knee, because this can put undue strain on the knee. So nestling that foot in wherever feels most comfortable and opening that right hip out. Focusing on balancing in that left foot, maybe taking the arms up overhead for a little bit of a challenge, or keeping the hands into heart center, however you choose to take this pose today. And just breathing once again, in through the nose and out through the nose in that wave-like oceanic motion for Ujjayi breath. inhale, bringing the knee back in towards the chest, and exhaling to extend that right foot out as straight in front of you as you possibly can. You'll feel the quad muscles really, really turn on here. You want to keep the hip as lifted as possible. You'll see my legs started to fall. And then bending the knee once more and grabbing a hold of the outside of the right knee with the left hand, or grabbing a hold of the toe with the peace fingers and twisting over to face the right side of the room, trying to keep your balance if possible. And if you can, gazing completely over the right shoulder towards the left hand. This is one of my favorite standing poses because it incorporates so many aspects of yoga. Option here for a more advanced pose is to grab a hold of the foot and take a one-legged standing forward fold. On a day when you're not very good at when you're not really feeling balances, this pose is definitely a challenge. If you aren't taking the forward fold, go ahead and open that right foot out towards the right side of the room for a standing hip opener. Bringing it back in towards center. Slowly transitioning through our warrior three once more. And exhaling to step back into our goddess pose. Inhale to bring the hands into cactus arms, taking the shoulder blades down the spine. And then exhale, begin to slowly oscillate between side bends on either side, bringing the forearm to rest on either thigh, taking the arms up overhead. Coming back through center after about 5 and stepping towards the back of the room. We'll repeat that all on the left side. So inhale, bring all the weight into the right foot, bringing the left foot up, the left knee in towards the chest, opening the knee out and placing the foot for your tree pose. Holding here for a few breaths. Once again, option to challenge your balance and take your arms up overhead and maybe even gaze up at them. Really focusing on opening that left knee out. Taking 2 more breaths here. Then on your last inhale, bringing the left knee back in towards the chest and extending the left foot out straight in front of you, trying to keep the thigh and the hip lifted as much as possible. You'll feel the quad muscles really engage and start to burn here. You want to keep holding as much as you can. Now bending the knee once more, grabbing a hold of the outside of the knee with the right hand, or hooking the peace fingers onto the left toes and extending that right or left arm back behind you. An option to gaze back towards the back of the room if you can keep your balance. Keeping the chest nice and lifted as you twist, inhaling to lengthen and exhaling to twist deeper. Last time, inhale and exhale, coming back to face forward, grabbing a hold of the bottom of the foot if you can, and folding forward. Some variations you can take to prep for this pose are simply to just grab a hold of the knee and fold over the quad, just to help you build the balance that you need in order to hold the pose. And then once your hamstring flexibility is there, you've already built up your balance. Hooking the fingers onto the left toes and opening that left arm out or left leg out towards the side. Option to gaze over towards the right for another balance challenge. Another variation here is to just simply open the knee out. And as you can see here, that can even be a challenge. Inhale, shift forward through a warrior 3, trying to keep your balance, flexing the back feet, the back toes. And exhale, stepping back to come through a wide-legged forward fold position. So bringing the feet parallel to one another. Inhale to puff up the chest, hands at the hips, and exhale to forward fold. Bringing the hands underneath the shoulders in line with the feet, walking the feet closer together or further apart depending on how easy or difficult this pose is for you, where you're currently at. If your head touches the ground very easily, you want to walk your feet in closer to one another. Inhale to halfway lift. And exhale, coming to face the front of the room with the left foot out in front of you, straightening both legs, coming into a square hip position, and exhale to fold over that left leg. Option to take the hands into reverse prayer behind the back, or to clasp the hands behind the back for a shoulder opener. Once again, keeping the hips square, trying to keep both heels onto the mat for this pyramid pose. And then exhale, coming up, standing on the left foot, bringing the right knee to bend, this time grabbing a hold of the top of the right foot with the right hand, coming into a dancer's prep here. So the knees are in line with one another, and begin to kick that right foot back into the right hand, and you'll slowly start to see or feel yourself feel your leg lifting back. You want to keep the hips as square as possible, and before you begin to start leaning forward, you really want to kick that leg as high up as you possibly can. It might not go very high, but then once you've gone as high as you can, then you can begin to slowly lean a little bit forward, maybe micro bending through that left knee to help retain balance. Coming out of this, bringing the right ankle across the left knee, coming into a figure 4 pose. Sinking into the hips. Once again, trying to keep your balance here. Option to stay here, or if you want to challenge, coming into an eagle pose, wrapping the right leg around the left and bringing the right elbow underneath the left and opening the shoulders up by taking the arms up. Slowly bring the elbows towards the knees, unravel your figure 4 or eagle, and come through a wide-legged position, getting ready to take our variation C of our forward fold. Inhale to puff up the chest and clasp the hands behind the back. Exhale to forward fold, bringing the hands up over the shoulders and the head, feeling a really nice deep stretch through the shoulders. Option if you at any point want to take a headstand or even pincha practice, you're more than welcome. You'll see me just playing around with a headstand here. I always like to take a headstand from a forward fold. Coming back down out of whatever inversion you might be taking, or even if you just held the forward fold the whole time, that's a juicy pose to just hang into. And then pivot the hips and the feet to face the back of the mat with the right leg forward, straightening through both legs, bringing the heels onto the mat. Inhale to halfway lift, and exhale, fold into this pyramid pose. Option to clasp the hands behind the back once more, or come into reverse prayer to open the shoulders even more. You can see here that my front leg is a little micro bent to keep my knee protected from hyperextending. Inhale, coming up through standing. And bringing the left knee in line with the right knee, once again grabbing a hold of the top of the foot with the left hand, preparing for dancer. Slowly begin to kick that left leg back into the hand and start to lift that leg up and back as you resist the kick with your hand. And then once you've kicked as high as you can, while keeping the hips square, you can slowly start to lean a little bit forward, keeping a micro bend in the right knee to help you balance. Inhale, coming back up through standing, bringing the left ankle to rest on the top of the right knee or the lower right thigh, coming through this figure 4 pose and just bending through the hips to stay here or to take eagle legs. Wrapping the left arm underneath the right elbow and lifting the arms up for a nice shoulder stretch. Then slowly begin to bring the elbows towards the knees and unravel into a warrior 3, stepping back into a goddess pose. Knees bent, feet pointed out at 45 degrees, coming through those cactus arms as well. And just holding here. If you want a little bit of a leg burn, start to take some pulses. In this goddess pose, you'll begin to feel the quads burning. If you've ever done sumo squats, you'll know that this is definitely a lot of work. Then slowly start to come down. If you are not on a carpeted surface like me, you'll definitely want to roll up your mat to pad under your knees. And even if you're on a carpeted surface, you might want to roll up your mat to pad your knees to protect them. Bringing the thighs to parallel, or bringing the thighs so that they're extending in one straight line out from the hips, and bringing the shins to parallel, flexing the feet and starting to lower the hips towards the mat as far down as they'll go. The longer you hold and breathe into this pose, the closer your hips will get to the mat and your chest as well. And just breathing into the hips, keeping that Ujjayi breath established, in through the nose and out through the nose. Frog is quite an intense stretch, so if at any point, even before we go into the pose, you feel that this is not safe for your body, just take a wide-legged child's pose, taking the knees out a little bit wider than your traditional child's pose would look. Or option to take another sort of hip opener, like a butterfly. To come out of this, slowly walk yourself in and bringing the feet to touch one another, and then slowly start to bring the knees in closer to one another. And coming through a tabletop, we'll just start to cool down here from the practice. Inhale, the left arm reaches up towards the ceiling, and exhale, thread it under, coming back to this thread the needle pose. Here at the end of the practice, your back should feel much more open. You can take that right arm up overhead, or option to take a half bind by hooking it onto the inside of the left hip. Just breathing into this pose. To come out of it, pressing the right hand into the mat, inhale to twist back up, and exhale back through tabletop. Inhale the right arm up towards the ceiling, and exhale threading the right arm through, extending the left arm up overhead, or option to hook it onto the inside of the right hip, taking a half bind. Once again, inhale, extending the spine, lengthening And exhale to twist deeper. Coming out of it, pressing the left palm into the mat. Inhale the right arm up, and exhale coming through our tabletop. Rolling over the knees to come into a seated position. And then lifting the butt, we'll take a camel pose here. So bringing the hands onto the lower back for our first variation. Slowly start to press the hips forward as you bend backwards, waiting until the last possible minute to take the head back. You want to keep your chin tucked in towards the chest until you've reached the full expression of this pose. If you have a more open, flexible back, feel free to grab a hold of your ankles with your hands rather than keeping your hands on your lower back. To come out of this, first your chin will tuck back in towards your chest, and then you'll slowly start to lift yourself back up. And come in. From child's pose, bring the forearms onto the mat, pressing through the toes, and lift the hips up into a dolphin pose. It's the same as a downward dog, except your forearms are pressing into the mat, walking the feet as close into the hips as you can. Inhale the right leg up if you feel strong in this pose, and just alternate between lifting the right leg and the left leg, practicing shifting the hips up over the shoulders to build strength for a pincha pose. Option to take knee tucks here. It's a great core exercise to also help as a prep for pincha pose. So you can see I did 3 on each side. Option 2, if you want to hop up into your pincha pose or go up against a wall and practice like kicking up, bringing the feet to the wall. Exhale back through our dolphin pose. And exhale lowering into child's. Option to keep the arms extended up overhead or bringing them back to graze either side of you to give the shoulders a complete break. And just breathe. Preparing to come back up through a downward dog. Inhaling here and exhale to lift heels, bend knees. Inhale, traveling up to the top of the mat. Halfway lift, gaze forward, and exhale, forward fold. Inhale, coming up through a chair pose. And slowly begin to sit the butt down onto the mat and take those back body rolls. Option to take a plow pose here, alternating between plow and boat pose. Coming back up into boat pose to hold. You can keep the knees bent in this boat pose, or you can extend the legs straight. Whatever feels good in your body, but also gives you a challenge in your core. Slowly begin to lower down, bringing the feet hips distance apart. And we'll begin to prepare for a bridge pose. Option to take the feet out towards the edges of the mat and take some windshield wipers. Bringing the feet back into hips distance, pressing into the heels, grazing the backs of the ankles with the middle fingers. Inhale to press into the heels to lift your pelvis up, walking the shoulder blades further underneath the back, maybe taking a clasp under and holding this back bend. Option to place a block under the lower back if you want to take a supported bridge here, if that's in your practice today. Last breath in, and exhale, slowly lowering down vertebrae by vertebrae, bringing the knees in towards the chest for a nice hug and release of the lower spine. Bringing the feet back down onto the mat, we'll prepare for our next round of bridge or wheel if wheel is in your practice today. So once again, feet hips distance. On the inhale, press up using the weight in the heels, lifting the pelvis up for your bridge pose, or lifting yourself up into a full wheel, bringing your hands on either side of the ears, keeping the knees and the toes pointed directly forward, and maybe walking the hands in closer towards the feet. Holding here, making sure you can still breathe in whatever pose you take. Last breath in, and on the breath out, slowly lowering down, bringing the knees to hug in towards the chest. Inhale to extend the left leg long, and exhale with taking the right knee over towards the left, coming into a supine twist, keeping the shoulders planted firmly into the mat. Inhale, lengthen, and exhale, twist deeper. Inhale, coming back through center, and exhale, switch out the legs. Taking an inhale here with the left knee in towards the chest, right leg extended, and exhale, twist the left knee over towards the right. Once again, keeping the shoulder blades planted firmly into the mat. Taking nice deep inhales and exhales to lengthen and twist deeper in this pose. Coming out of this, bringing the knee back in towards the chest on the inhale, and exhale, extending that leg out, coming into our final relaxation, our final pose of the class, Savasana. I encourage you to pause the video here and take Savasana for as long as you can, allowing the body to just be on the mat, allowing the effects of this physical practice to sink in throughout the entire body and sink into the mind. You worked hard today. We built a lot of heat, opened a lot throughout the body, focused on the breath, and you deserve a rest here. Thank you for joining me today, YouTube Yogis. Namaste.